Still got this cold. Should have taken my antibiotics. So a couple of months ago, I saw on BBC News that doctors had performed an operation on 2 babies with spina bifida, successfully fusing their spines so as to give them a chance, more mobility in the future. Spina bifida is a condition where certain parts of the body aren't fused, and particularly in the spine. I think it can be very debilitating for a child who grows up with this condition. So that is a miracle in itself that doctors can perform these sorts of operations today. But what was particularly noteworthy about this miracle was that these 2 children were still in their mother's wombs. Technology has developed, medicine has developed, so that we can operate on children with conditions while they're still gestating inside their mothers. Isn't that a miracle? The fact that we can do these wonderful things, we should give thanks to God for the genius of men and women who come up with these technologies in order to give us all a chance at a better life. It's truly wonderful. And that was in this country. And yet, in this country, the law, as it's put at the moment, allows a person, in certain conditions, to end the life of their child right up until before the moment of birth. How can we live with this contradiction? Every one of us, when we hear of a child who's been saved in the womb, we'd rejoice, wouldn't we? You get that feeling. At the same time, we still have to live with this sad reality that abortion of this kind is allowed by law. We can end the life of a human being. Now, I know there are subtleties to the debate, and there are all different reasons why the law is such that it is, and I don't want to dismiss them. But my gut tells me, as I think it tells most of us here, that to end the life of a human being in the womb is just wrong. It's just wrong. Before all rationalization, before all sort of arguments or whatever, we know in our gut that it's wrong. And yet, I want to play devil's advocate with this situation and ask the question, are we, or am I, defending the life of the child in the womb up till birth, really pro-life? People tend to fall one side of the argument or the other. We're either pro-life, which means that we believe in the integrity and the dignity of a life from conception until birth, or we're pro-choice, which means that wherever we stand on the spectrum, we say it's allowable to end the life of a child before they're born, and so therefore it's a person's right to choose whether to end that child's life. We tend to be on one side or the other. But am I truly pro-life? Really? Well, this was a dilemma I faced on Friday, and it's not the first time, and maybe it gives us pause for thought to consider what our pro-life position really is. On Friday, normally it's my day off on Friday, so I'm not normally here, but on Friday evening, the homeless shelter runs, and for once I thought I'd have a day off at home. So I thought, well, it's a chance for me to pop in and see the volunteers, to see our guests, see how things are going on. So I go in there in my casual clothes and whatnot, and I say hello to everyone. I have a cup of tea and have some food, and it feels good. I'm in there, and I think, isn't this great that in this parish we're providing for the needs of those with less means? And I came into the house feeling really good. I thought, well, yeah, it's great that it's happening here, and I'm the parish priest, so maybe it was my fault that this happened. Feeling all good about myself, and then I went into my office, and as I went into the office, I looked at my coat stand, and I saw 3 coats, all mine, 3 coats on that coat stand, and it bothered me a bit. I didn't know why. And then I went upstairs and I opened my wardrobe to get a jumper out, and I saw 3 more jackets. I've got 3 hoodies now. I like hoodies, and at Christmas I said to my mum and my brother, I'm short on hoodies. I only had 1, so now I've got 3, and they're awesome. Yeah. So, but that's 6 coats, and I was like, huh. And then I went downstairs, and I've got this saying. It's part of a saying of a Saint Basil, and one of the lines is, "The garment that you keep in your wardrobe is the garment of him who is naked. And that's when it hit home. There were 15 people sleeping in that hall who probably didn't have a garment of their own. If they got one coat to keep themselves warm for one night, they'd feel blessed. And here I was with 6. Was I truly pro-life? Was I truly pro the life of those individuals in the hall? It's questionable. I might have the intellectual reasoning to say that to end a life is wrong, but then do I commit to the flourishing of the lives of those who are in need? My wardrobe suggests otherwise. We can ask the same question of ourselves, perhaps, in different areas of our lives. Am I pro-life when it comes to the consideration of other individuals in our society? It's questionable. Like, for example, the big debate always with Brexit and everything is about immigration, isn't it? It's very tempting sometimes to lump people into categories. We hear it all the time, don't we? The scaremongering about groups of individuals who may pose a threat to national security, perhaps because of their extreme religious beliefs and whatever, and how easy it is for us to tar people with the same brush and become afraid of individuals, forgetting that they are individuals, that they are sacred lives, each and every single one of them willed by God. Am I pro the life of those people? Am I pro the life of the mother who is having a difficult time carrying the child? Perhaps she's being abused by her partner. Perhaps her family has thrown her out. Perhaps she has no food and she's worried how she's going to feed this child when it's born. What's my attitude towards her? Am I pro her life? Can I understand how a pro-choice position, a position which gives people a sense of power over their own lives, creeps into our society, creeps into our culture, and enables us to, in a sense, blithely condone the killing of our unborn? It's a big question to answer. See, as Christians, for us to be truly pro-life, for me to be truly pro-life, that pro-life has to apply to each and every single individual I encounter, to each and every single individual who God ever created, whether they're a clump of cells right at the beginning, a human person right at the beginning of conception, or they're on their deathbed, whether they're starving to death on my doorstep. That ethic of life has to be consistent all the way through. If people are to look at our behavior, and see that our opinions and that our beliefs hold true. Because that's how Jesus changed the world. He was consistent all the way through. And those who came to believe in him held his ethic of life, the dignity of each and every single human being, right through to the end. Before Jesus, there was no consistent ethic of life. In fact, it was more like the law of nature. In nature, for example, like if you've ever watched David Attenborough or anything like that, Wildlife Film 1, there are no pro-life lions. There are no pro-life tigers. If a cub is weak, it's left to die. It's thrown away. In pagan society, if children were disabled or disfigured or had any kind of defect and weren't considered fit for work or whatever it was, they were thrown away, left and exposed to die. That was the culture in which Jesus was born, and he transformed it because people came to hold the belief in who he was. God made man, not God descended from heaven in human form, but rather a God who was conceived, who became that clump of cells, which we so easily try to diminish the life of an individual by calling them a clump of cells, became a clump of cells, was an embryo, was a baby in the womb, and was born. And then in his lifetime, he inhabited all of the most difficult situations of human lives, all of those ones we try to avoid and turn our eyes away from. He was poor among the poor. He had only one garment. He healed people with disfigurements. He ate with prostitutes and tax collectors. He dignified every person he met because he had dignified the whole of humanity in his person. And when this idea took root and it took more than 3 centuries in the Roman Empire to take root. When people around began to observe how Christians conducted themselves, they saw that there was something different about them. It's even recorded in ancient writings, ancient Roman writings. They say, these Christians, they don't throw away their weak. They nurture them and bring them up on high. When people are old, they're venerated. They're not put to one side. And it was a shock to the system. It was a culture change. Every value that we hold about the dignity of the individual, every human right that we enshrine in law, is based on that Christian ethic. But it's slowly, or rather rapidly I should say, beginning to fade away from our society. Slowly but surely, when things like abortion become so enshrined in law as to become normal, then we see the fading away of this Christian culture that has been part of our lives for nearly 2 millennia. And why is it fading away? Because of us, because of me, because of my 6 coats, because of the inconsistency of my ethic of life. Because when people look at me or they look at people who say they're pro-life and see that they're not pro-life in every single situation, they say, well, you're not pro-life, you're pro-choice, you're pro-certain kinds of life. And therefore, what value is your belief in the life of a baby in the womb? You see how things fall apart? When we miss one, we miss all. Jesus is calling us back to the difficult path, a consistency of our ethic of life, from conception to natural death. And he wants us not just to hold it in here, but rather in here, and then to live it so that people may see and the world may be transformed, so that every human life, whatever its condition, may be considered as it is by God to be divine. Amen.